get the best out of this topic, you should already know how to open a dataset in SPSS or PSPP and to look at the variables in the variable view. You should also know how to recode a variable. We've got the data open in SPSS here. The data contain information gathered from people in England, Scotland and Wales. However, we're interested in doing some analysis just on people living in Scotland. So we would like to select these cases and apply a filter to exclude everyone else. We can do that in SPSS by clicking Data, Select Cases. By default, all cases are selected, but we're going to click If Condition is Satisfied. So we would like to select using the variable country. So I'm going to move country across into our criterion space. Now I want to check which values I need to include and exclude. So I'm just going to right click on country, which allows me to click on variable information. This tells me that the cases are coded as 1 if people live in England, 2 if they live in Scotland, and 3 if they live in Wales. So we know now that we just want to include people where country equals 2. So using this calculator pad, include country, people where country equals 2, continue, and OK. But before we click OK, just check that we're going to be filtering out unselected cases. That means that we don't lose any data, but we're only using the cases we want while the filter is applied. If we look at the data now, we can see from the bottom that the filter is on and that most cases that aren't people who live in Scotland, have been excluded from the analysis. Check that's worked. I can click on Analyze, Descriptive Statistics Frequencies, select Country, oops, and OK, and hey presto, we've only got the 272 people who live in Scotland. If we go back to the data, one thing to note is that while this was being done, SPSS has created for us, right at the end of the data set, a filter variable that takes the value 0 if the case isn't to be selected and 1 if it is to be selected. If we had a complicated criterion, we could save this variable and use it again later. In PSPP, we have to do a little bit more work beforehand ourselves. So as before, we've got the data open, and as you can see, we have our interviews available for people born in England, Wales and Scotland. If we were to go to Data, Select Cases, we can see that we don't have the option of Select If, but we do have the option to use a filter variable. If you remember, a filter variable takes the value 1 if you are going to select the case and 0 otherwise. So we need to create a filter variable from the variable country before we can start. We recode country into a new variable that we'll call Scotland. We want to select those cases that are in Scotland, that is where country equals 2. So in our new variable, if country equals 2, Scotland will equal 1. If country is any other value, then Scotland equals 0. Right, so now that we've got a variable that's equal to 1 where we want cases to be selected, we can then Data, Select Cases, and then select using a filter variable. Our filter variable is Scotland. By default, cases are filtered, and click OK. So now, in the same way that we saw with SPSS, cases are crossed out if they're not going to be in use for the analysis. And we've got a filter by Scotland in the bottom telling us what we're filtering by. If at any point we want to switch the filter off, we simply go back to Data, back to Select Cases, and choose Select All.